chemistry is critical in the C-suite, in the locker room, and on air. Today's guest has been a leading voice for 30 years. Let's learn about chemistry. Welcome to Decision Points. I'm Doug Hudson. Welcome, Corby Davidson, co-host of The Ticket.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
I heard there was a heavy negotiation with one of our team members, Chris Conlon, to get you here.
Yeah.
How'd that go back and forth?
It was a lot of leveraging back and forth, but he agreed to let my oldest play on his basketball team, so his man basketball team. So I was like, you do that, I'll do this, no problem.
How old is your oldest? What's
he's
his name?
18.
18?
Yeah.
So he's playing in Conlon's
they had
adult
like a
league or whatever.
Yeah, they had like a men's tournament, 3-on-3 tournament, basically, that they do up at our church/school.
Yeah.
Our kids went and his kids go, and so they used to do it just for kids, and now it's adults. And it was funny, so now my oldest is eligible to be an adult at 18.
Yep.
So he played like 3 games and walks over and he goes, "I don't understand." He's like, "These guys are so much stronger than the kids I play in high school." He's like, "It's like old man strength." I'm like, "Yeah, it is, bro. It is
I've been
old
telling
man."
you this all your life. I
Yeah.
can still whoop you.
Exactly.
So have they had the tournament? And how
Yeah, they had it. They finished. They got to the finals, I think, but they got dusted by one of the teachers of the school. So yeah, which was funny.
Now, in true confessions, Conlon told me yesterday he kind of got heated with your history professor.
He did. Yeah. Conlon.
So now is Conlon now banned from his own adult basketball league?
He may be kicked out of school. His kids may be kicked out of school. No, that was kind of funny. Conlon's an athlete, right? Like the man is an athlete,
and he's a competitor.
He wants to win.
So I'm going to tell you a funny story. One of the funny things about this, you don't get this privilege every day at your day job.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a 7-second window. You get this?
Yeah.
But we can edit anything we want here.
Right.
So my first 10 years, I was in the ministry for a mega church here in town. I'm going to leave it nameless.
Right.
The pastor played softball. The deacons went to him and said, "You no longer play softball. You are killing church attendance.
Right.
You are making more enemies than you are friends." The dude is so competitive.
You can't take the competitiveness out of anyone, no matter what they do.
100%.
Yeah.
You put a fancy tie or a robe on them, you get them on a field. That's one of the things we love about sports.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
I get it.
And Conlon's like the nicest guy, but you get, I'm sure, in between the lines and let's go to war. So how long you been at the Ticket?
30 years. Long time.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a good run. We had our 30-year anniversary in February, and we're lucky. We're really lucky. It's been obviously it's been a big part of all of our lives over there, but it's been a big part of the community, and we're lucky to all be a part of it.
I moved here in '88 from Fort Lauderdale. What year? Because it started pretty dang.
94 was the first year, February 94. So, I was right out of college and just kind of wandered over there and asked for an internship and went from there.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And I hear in January you just kind of re-upped for 5 years.
Yeah. So that'll probably be it. I don't think I'll be done with work per se, but I'll be done with a career.
Yeah.
I think that'll be long enough and let somebody else kind of step in and do what they want to do. So yeah, I don't want to be the guy that hangs around too long. And I think for me, it's kind of the sweet spot of when to jump out.
Have you and your wife thought about what that might look like in 5 years?
Yeah. Kind of my youngest, speaking of school and church and all that, he goes to St. Patrick's and he'll be in college by then. So, it's just kind of like I planned it around whenever the kids leave the house.
Yep.
And then, I think we'll always have a place in the city, somewhere in Dallas and then somewhere else. I don't know where, but we'll kind of be going jockeying back and forth, maybe Colorado, maybe Florida. Yeah. We'll see. Go
get a second place in Norman as well, and you and Barry could walk to the market for a sandwich.
There's no doubt. If Barry will let me, I'll definitely be showing my face around that place a little bit more in a few years.
We'll get into that in a minute, but my wife is from Oklahoma. She went to OU. Our family has a business there as well. So I was there about a month ago, and it was craziness on a Saturday. Absolutely. We went to go pick up a sandwich. Craziness. Barry walks in about 2 o'clock, And I think he goes there every day.
He does.
And he looked around, and this lady, we're waiting for our sandwich, says, "Is that Coach Switzer?" I said, 100%. That's Coach. She says, "Will you take my picture with him?" And I said, "Well, of course I will." And Barry walks in, and it's 2:15, and he's like, I thought the place would have been empty by now. That's why I showed up now. And I was like, "Coach," I said, "get back there and start making sandwiches." And he looked at me like, who is this knucklehead who's just calling me out? And I said, "This man she'd like a picture." And so I took a picture. And so it's just awesome how he's made that his town.
He's the king. They call him the king for a reason. But yeah, it's.
Well, maybe you can, or at least I'm sure you got a place to go stay if you want to go visit him more often.
Yeah,
and y'all
I hope. I hope.
Where are you from? Where were you raised?
Went to school in Arlington for the majority of my existence. As a kid, went to Lamar High School, then TCU, and then moved over to Dallas in the early 90s. And
okay. After college, you came?
Yeah. I went. So I kind of thought I wanted to do radio. I listened to a lot of Howard Stern.
Yeah.
And so I was like a huge Howard Stern fan. And so I went from TCU, I went to North Texas because they have, a really good radio, TV, film program
their
over
arts
there.
Program in general.
And so started working for the radio station over there, and I was interning at the Ticket at the same time, and I was learning so much every day at the radio station. Like I was kind of like, man, I'm soaking up a lot over here as opposed to just the slow burn of school.
Yes.
And I kind of
a little faster pace.
Yeah.
Business typically operates a lot faster than education does.
Exactly. So they hired me over there to do, just kind of menial stuff. But at that point,
what was the first job?
First job was a weekend overnight board op, meaning I got there, I was like 23 years old, I think, and I had to be there Friday nights at 10 o'clock.
Yeah. The happening spot at Friday nights at 10.
Yeah. And so Fridays and Saturday nights, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., I basically ran the board, played commercials, all that stuff. I mean, it was like, it's the worst job you could possibly have at any radio station. A woman at the time, who was my supervisor, she asked me, she was like, "I think we have an opening." And I was like, "I'll take it." And I was interning, and she's like, "Well, I haven't told you what it was." I'm like, "I think I know what it is." And I'm good. I just want my foot in the door.
Were you listening to the Ticket at that time?
Oh God, yes. Yeah. So this would have been, the station started in February, and I was definitely listening at the time. Living up in Denton, I just thought it was the most magical place ever. Some place that you could sit there and talk sports. I was a huge sports nerd, growing up, and played sports and all of that. So, for me, it was just like heaven. And I didn't really care. I had friends that were getting out of college with really good jobs and making a lot of money and things like that. And I was like, I know I'm going to be broke, and I'm probably going to be broke for a while. Hell, I may be broke forever. I don't know. But I think that this is kind of what I'd like to do. Once I kind of got involved with the guys over there, and I kind of realized that it's where I belonged and where I fit, and that I'd appreciate whatever opportunities were given to me.
Obviously, a very clear life lesson right there. I mean, you're young, you're 23, 24, whatever. Why do you think you were able to say, I'm going to pursue what I love, what someone else may have said, I need to go pursue a better paying job?
I mean, it's a great question, and it's I don't know the answer to it, because I mean, obviously it just depends on the individual, because we're a society that's driven by money first and foremost, it seems like, and that's what you're thinking about is, maybe when you're in high school or college and you're working whatever job there is, and that you're like, okay, how can I keep climbing the ladder of success and all that. But there is a line where you're like, am I happy here?
Yep.
Am I doing something that I like to do? And I did figure out early on that regardless of pay, which was good, that I wanted to do something that I enjoyed.
Yep.
Right? That I knew that I could go home, that I wasn't stressed out about it, even though there's a lot of stress in the job. I knew it would be fun stress, if that makes any sense. And I mean, I have a lot of friends that just worked menial jobs right out of school and never found anything that they truly loved. And I think that's I mean, that's your life, man.
Your life. But I'm sure too, Corby, you've done this long enough. People look at a public facing role like you have, and they look at you and go, if I could just talk sports all day long, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
That grass is greener. And you maybe at times look over the fence too and think that grass is greener over there.
Sure.
Conversations that you've had like that over the years?
And I talk to people now that are trying to get in the business, and I'll, send them the warning signs of like, look, this is not, it's a long road to hoe to get to where you want to be.
Yep.
If you ever do get there at all,
Yep.
And for me, it was about timing. And I tell a lot of people that, if the ticket would have started 5 years prior when I was in high school, I doubt that I would have had the opportunities that were given to me right when I was out of college, and the station was in flux too.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like a home run in the beginning.
Yeah, what improvement. I love that. We're in the investment business. It's so easy to look back 30 years ago. That was a great investment to make.
Yeah.
We're in the formative days.
Right. Yeah. It was early on. And so it was like people talk about it kind of being like a Chili's wait staff early on where people were coming and going, left and
makes
right.
sense.
It was just a matter of finding my footing there and knowing, having some sort of vision of what I wanted to do. But even then I was never sure, and it was just, things just kept opening up for me. And again, it was all timing based. Even let's say if I would have been 28,
yeah,
I doubt that I would have gone in there and said, hey, let me get an internship or let me take a $5 an hour job or whatever it was, because I would have been at some other point in my life. So it all really did fit in a nice, neat little box for me timing wise. And then it was just a matter of doing the right things and working hard.
Working hard. And then you found that you were competent at this. And guess what? You were getting reps, so you got lots of practice. So let me back up a little bit. So you TCU, North Texas, then you go work full-time basically at the ticket?
I found an apartment. I had an ex-girlfriend that lived over by SMU, and she was going to study abroad, like do graduate study abroad. And she had an apartment, a garage apartment that was $330, all bills paid. She was leaving and she goes, if you want this, I can hook you up with our landlord or whatever. And I'm like, yeah.
Yes, I'm in.
1,000% I'm in. I often think about if I would have stayed there my entire life, what kind of money would I would have, what kind of piles of money I would have had. But it was.
But you may not. I mean, you may not have a wife, and I don't know.
No, you wouldn't have a wife. Of course not. It was cheap. Thank God it was, and it was very centrally located. It was literally just north of SMU's campus, and it was perfect. And at the time, the radio station was on Mockingbird and Central.
Yeah.
So I was.
Oh my gosh.
Minutes away.
Yeah.
I mean, from the station, and it never really went too far. It came back down here in Turtle Creek. We were off Maple and Oaklawn, and now we're down near the AAC. But tough in the beginning, and I think I did the overnight board op thing for about 9 months.
Okay. Did you make it known, Corby, right away that you wanted to be on air? I mean, was that obvious to the team there?
No.
I mean, how does that conversation come about in your journey?
So I was doing, kind of menial work. I would do the Friday and Saturday night shifts, and then I would work promotions. I would fill in as a producer. I would do a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so I was learning a lot about the entirety of the radio station. And there was a part of me that contemplated like, well, maybe if I went over there to the sales offices, maybe I could, but then I was like, I didn't want to get into business.
Yep.
I knew I didn't want to be in business.
Yep.
My first real big break was Chris Arnold. I don't know if you know Chris.
Oh, yeah. So, I know he is, of course.
Yeah. So Chris, we had a producer shakeup in like 95, and he and I filled in a couple of times as his producer, and we had a good relationship. And so when that job opened up, he asked me if I wanted to do it. I'm like, yeah.
Yes.
In the radio business, getting to do that, to kind of plan the show and to, book guests and be on the air a little bit,
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
it was
you wade into the waters as far as being on air.
Yeah. And I did realize at that point that I really like that side of it. And
Yep.
so I knew that that's kind of where I wanted to be. But then it was a matter of things opening up for me. I started doing the golf show. I'm a huge golfer.
Yep.
And so they had Saturday
mornings. Yes.
Saturday mornings, still do the golf show. And Rick Arnett, who I did it with back in the day in the mid to late 90s, he's still doing it. And
Yep.
So that was a big break for me. And then Saturdays, a little bit later on in the cycle of my career, I joined Gordon, who does our morning show, and Dave Lane, and we did this show called The Rant.
Yep.
And The Rant really is what kind of catapulted me from being in my head like, okay, maybe I could do this producer thing is for a long, long time and I'd be super happy with it. Once I did The Rant, I'm like, okay, I definitely want to do this. I want to be on the air.
Yep.
And then after that, in late 99, Mike and Greg, who did the Hardline at the time, Mike Reiner and Greg Williams, they were looking to add a third voice. And they reached out to me.
No way.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I've been
What were those conversations like?
It was weird. Mike was a really intimidating guy back then because he kind of started the station and all that.
He was a pioneer in a sense in this genre.
Yeah. And so it was only 5 years after the radio station started. And looking back on it, it seemed like that it was so well established. And it was by that point. I felt like such a kid, when I would talk to him because I listened to him when I was a kid.
Yeah.
When he was on the Zoo, which is a rock station around here. And so I was acutely aware of him and I was kind of intimidated by him, but it didn't take long to kind of get through all that BS.
Was there an interview audition type thing? Or was it they had heard enough on The Rant and they're like, let's do this?
Yeah. And then, Chris Arnold left. And for a time, he was on 10 to noon. And so I was just doing the 10 to noon shift. It was really easy. But for a time when he left before they hired Norm, so Norm Hitzges came in, Bob and Dan were doing noon to 3, and then they had them do 10 to 3.
Okay.
And they put me on there with them.
Okay. Yep.
And so and that was only for a couple of months.
Yep.
And so that really was probably my big audition, I think. And it was doing bits and funny stuff and, a lot of goofy interviews and things like that. And so that's what they were looking for from 3 to 7. It was just kind of do that on a bigger scale, on a daily scale. So,
did you ever get nervous? Do you still get nervous when you go do man on the street type stuff?
Overly prepared for those moments, whether I was doing, like a wireless mic somewhere, or if I was going in a locker room and interviewing. I mean, I had it down. Like I knew what I was doing early on because I was scared to death.
Yeah,
like literally, I was scared to death, and so I kind of had it. I feel like an actor rehearsing almost at times, but I just want to make sure that I had all my ducks in a row. I mean, I wanted to sound improv and things like that, and eventually it was, but early on, I was freaking out.
It's a great life lesson.
Yeah.
One of my favorite phrases, I didn't come up with it, but really talented, proven people make difficult things look easy.
Yeah.
You look at a surfer, you look at this, and you just go, they're just on a board, surf. They make really complicated, difficult things. So I think is our listeners, a lot of them business owners, they want to own a business, they do own a business. I think it'll be intriguing them to hear, it is for me, that you were well rehearsed, what sounded like complete improv.
You got to be ready to fail and willing to fail multiple times, which I look back on it. There were tons of times where things that I thought were going to be really funny or really clever that weren't, and I moved on. But I was willing to take the hit, and it sucked at the time, but you got to be willing, no matter what it is.
At every age.
Yeah.
The only failure is to quit.
Yeah.
And the willing to take a swing and go down strikes and get back up and live to play another day.
Yeah.
Let me take a tangent for a second. Remind me your wife's name?
Julie.
Julie. When do you and Julie meet? When does that side of your personal life?
So we met in the late 90s when I was living down in Deep Ellum.
Okay.
I moved from that garage apartment into an apartment in Deep Ellum. And
so Julie never saw the 330 all bills paid?
Nope.
No?
No. She's aware of it, but she never saw it.
Yeah, yep.
Kind of glad
Thank
she never
goodness.
saw that.
Yeah.
It was
She'd be married to Jeff or John right now.
Right. Yeah. So we met in the late 90s and then got married in November of 2000. Her boss at the time, she worked for a little record label.
Interesting.
Yeah, like I can't remember the name of the label, local indie label, and they listened a lot.
Yep.
But she wasn't a big listener, and she got to be. Now she's all in now.
Yeah, she's all in.
Yeah.
And how many kids y'all have?
2 kids, 2 boys. One's 18, one is 14. So the 14-year-old is going to Jesuit next year as a 9th grader. And then my oldest is going to KU next year, going to Kansas next year. Yeah.
Yep. How was that college selection process?
I think it was more like, I don't want to fill out applications. I don't want to talk to people. And so he loves basketball.
Yep. Well,
loves it. And so knew he wasn't going to get into Duke or Carolina. And so went up to KU and went to a basketball game, and that was kind of it.
Yeah, I would imagine that'll close the deal pretty easily.
Yeah. It was like it was during, it's weird at KU because I'd never been up there before in my life to Lawrence.
Really?
I'd never been.
And you never been to basketball? No way.
Nope.
Even to go see the Sooners play?
Never went.
Interesting.
I know.
Because you knew it'd probably be an L.
Yeah, I know OU hadn't won a game there since '93, so it's been a long time. And now they won't go back because now they're in the SEC.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, like it was during school break, and so I thought like it wouldn't be that big of a crowd.
Yep.
And that it's sold out every game. Every game.
Yeah, it's legend. It's like Duke, and I guess there's just not many iconic Wrigley. There's certain iconic teams. Almost doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
Probably the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You can go 30 years without a...
Right.
So one of the questions I want to ask you is, we do talk a lot about leadership on Decision Points, and mojo, I guess, vibe, chemistry, it's essential for what you do.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if it's off a little bit, the listener's going to pick up on that.
Sure.
How have you seen it done well, seen it maybe done poorly in your 30 years, and you've co-hosted with multiple different people?
Mm-hmm.
How has that process and journey, give us some stories around that going well and maybe not going so well?
Yeah, it's kind of the toughest thing,
I'm sure.
In that industry. And so, just from me personally, I'm pretty easy to work with.
Yep.
And I'm a really good listener.
Yep.
And I'm open to people having their own voice. And if you like fast forward to today, when 4 years ago, Bob Sturm and I started working together.
Mm-hmm.
And, we'd worked together obviously for 20 years, but we'd never done a show together. And there's a huge difference.
Yep.
And it took a while for each of us to kind of find our footing. But if you're open to not being the boss or not being positioning yourself as like, I'm the guy, you will defer to me, type thing. I think that there's a really good chance at success, especially with, guys like he and I that were already kind of established in the market. It didn't take long for us to figure it out. And then we added Dave Lane a couple of years ago, and I'd worked with Dave on the ramp before. And so it took time, but you just want to make sure in a situation like that, and it is something that it took time to learn in that industry, that everyone is happy, and that's easier said than done. But if everybody feels like they're contributing in whatever way it is, that they have their voice, that they have their ideas, that they're being heard, then for me, that's the most important thing, because I've come from a place where in the industry where that really wasn't always the case, and you kind of got to fight for it a little bit. And so I always did think that whenever I did have, my own show, and air quote that,
right,
because it's not my own show, but I've been on that 3 to 7 slot for forever, and it's
right. You were the veteran on that show. Bob was not. Dave was not. Right,
and so it was really important for me to let them know that, like, hey, you are just as big a part of this as I am, So the chemistry, it just takes a little bit of time, I think, in situations like that, and people that are talented in whatever industry, as long as you're okay with sharing whatever glory there is or failure that there is, then I think that you'll end up being successful. I mean, obviously there's a hierarchy to everyone's business and things like that, but and I've seen it fail. I've seen, trust me, firsthand, close up, relationships fail because there were a couple of glory hounds in the room. And what's been I think you addressed it, but I'd love for you to elaborate.
I mean, this tears up boardrooms, C-suites, little league teams, doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
What is it that you consistently see kind of kill chemistry?
Lack of communication to start.
Okay.
Right? Like where there is a little bit of friction, and then for whatever reason, it just kind of gets buried, especially with men. You're probably not as prone to being as open about your feelings and what you feel is wrong or right. And you let that fester for a certain amount of time, and then that just kind of builds into a cauldron, and you're kind of effed after that.
Yep.
Especially the older you get. And so, again, I think it's just, you've got to be open to other people's ideas, to other people's suggestions. You may have the final say in whatever it is, but you better damn well be open to your team, whoever it is, having an opinion, having a say. It's why they're there.
I love how you said that, Corby. There is a hierarchy. I think often leaders, if you're exerting to the org chart often, remember, Corby, it's my show.
Mm-hmm.
If you're referring to the org chart for leadership, that's that control command, which doesn't tend to last very long. Yes, there's a hierarchy, but I'm hearing collaboration. So when you guys, you, Bob, Dave, if there's a brush up, if there's a pragmatically, what does your all's communication look like? How does that play out for you guys?
Yeah, if there's a disagreement in the room, which really, honestly, there's really not. We don't disagree too much on what goes on the air or what stays off the air. But if there is, it's like, do we really think this is a good idea? Should we really do this at this time when, let's say that in the 5 o'clock hour when everyone's listening typically, we want to put something on there that we're not really sure about. And so everybody kind of understands where things go and what should be on the air. And every now and then there's a little bit of pushback from one side or the other, but it doesn't last very long until you have an open discussion about it, And even in our business, and as familiar as I am with the guys that I work with, there's still a little bit of pushback one way or the other, but you just gotta, it'll end though, honestly, with us, it's over within 5 minutes. We'll figure it out. We'll get it, done and dusted, and move on to the next thing. But I've seen it where that keeps going and lingering and lingering and lingering, and then you're going up to bosses and bitching and complaining, and it's just not the way I roll. And I, for me, for that time slot, I just want everyone to go home with a smile on their face and know that they've contributed, that they've had a really good day, a really fun time. Because in our business, that's all it is. It's an entertainment business. If my stomach hurts because I laughed a lot, then I know it's been a hell of a show. And I want to make sure that the other guys feel that way too.
That's awesome. I want to dig in there a second, because I think what I just heard you say, I think one of the things missing in many people's life, whether it's personal or professional, is kind of a clarity of what am I here for?
Mm-hmm.
As you guys think through professionally, I think you were referring to the team. What is it you want a listener to walk away with when the show's over, or they have to get out of the car or stop streaming? Do you all talk about what is it, that one thing you want the listener to have?
Yeah, I mean, I want them to relax, because typically for us, people are getting off work, and not typically all the time. I mean, that's it. That's where your drive time. So people are either on their way to work in the morning, or they're, and they may have a little bit better at it. I don't know if people are more prone to relax once their shift is over and whatever they do. But I just want people to relax. In my head, they've had a hard day. And I kind of want them to be able to laugh, to be able to take their mind off whatever, to listen to us, just have their mind go blank, and have us kind of stupidly entertain you throughout your drive or whatever you're doing at the house, walking around with your earbuds on, or, that's important. That's super, super important. And I hear it a lot from people, how important that element is. Like, they may be going through something really shitty, like something at home that's just, we don't, like everybody does.
We all do.
Everybody goes through it. Yeah. And so I just always wanted to make sure that, yes, they're informed clearly, but mainly they're entertained, and they're having as much fun listening as we are doing it.
Who named you, and how'd the Cobra, a snake, get started?
My dad grew up in McKinney. Mom grew up in Oklahoma, and they met at the University of Oklahoma, which is why I'm a big OU fan. My dad went there to play football.
Okay.
And then at some point, he had just gotten out of school and went to an OU Texas game. And there was a guy playing for Texas named Corby Robertson. And he was like, that's an interesting name. Never heard that name. And it just stuck with him in the back of his head. If I ever have a boy, I've got that name.
It's Corby.
Yeah. And so my mom was cool with it. So yeah, I was named after my dad, who played at OU, named me after a Texas football player. And a funny story, I met Corby Robertson. So he owns, I don't know what the word is for it, but Whispering Pines down in Houston. That's Corby's place. And I think...
So have you played it yet?
I have, and not only did I play it, the pro there is a guy named Chris Rowe, who used to be over at Colonial in Fort Worth. And so I'm talking, and I've known Chris forever, and so I'm talking to Chris, and we were playing 36 holes that day. And Chris is going, Corby, he's pointing out on the golf course, like, Corby's going to do this to it and that, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, is he here? And he goes, yeah, he's out there right there by the putting green. So I was like, I got to go
100%.
tell him the story. So I go over there and I'm like, Mr. Robertson, it's going to sound weird. My name's Corby. I'm named after you. And I told him the story about, the Oklahoma, Texas thing. And he's like, well, damn. He was like, a Sooner named you after a Longhorn. I thought I'd heard everything.
My dad does hate you, but he loves your name.
Yeah, exactly. Once I got to the ticket, Mike Reiner took Corby and turned it into Cobra.
Okay.
And then that just turned into Snake somehow.
And probably just literally just on a rift on air.
Totally.
Corby's close enough to Cobra.
Yeah.
It's Cobra, and now it's Snake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it.
Isn't it funny? You had no idea when that happened, or did you know I'm going to be stuck with that the rest of my life?
I had no idea. And the nickname thing, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's everywhere.
Well,
I was in Colorado this weekend and I was at a concert up at Red Rocks, and there were 15, 20 P1s that were randomly just up there, and I'd hear, I'd be walking, be like, "Here's Snake," and a friend of mine from college is there, and he was like, "This is unbelievable. You're in Colorado right now." I'm like, "Yeah,
yeah." Content does find its audience, and it gets out there. If you had a room full of CEOs, this is a question we like to ask. What's a message that you would give them? You've sat in a room with a lot of leaders.
Yeah, for sure.
CEO. What do you think they struggle with? What do you respect about them? What would you?
Well, you typically respect people. My friend that I was with in Colorado this weekend, he's CEO of a company and known him for forever. And, you get to be a certain age and you get to, more and more people are in leadership position, obviously. And so kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, probably listen, and listen to not only your peers, but listen to people that are younger than you and I see it a lot in our business too. Just be open to change, be open, because that's the hardest thing, man. It's really difficult. But somebody may actually that's 20 years younger than you have a better idea than you do.
Shocking.
I know. We never want to see it that way, but you put yourself in that position when you were 30 and you're talking to a 55-year-old guy and you're thinking to yourself, I think I could do things as well or better, but he's never going to listen to me. But so if you're on the other side of it, always remember that there are people that you were right there at one point.
Yeah.
And so to really treat those people with respect, and it would not only make your business hum a little bit better, but it'd make relationships so much better. And it would make, just the attitude of your employees, you hear it all the time, people going home and they're pissed off and they hate their job this and hate their job that. And a lot of it has to do with bosses, and bosses don't have to be the stereotypical bosses that, you see in TVs and movies. They can actually be someone that can be a mentor as well, I
couldn't agree more, Corby. One of the guests that we had on the podcast is leadership Rand Stagen, and locally here, and his firms serve leaders all over the world. But I love one of the things where he was framing complaints, then also the power, though, that we give when we complain about bosses. You know what I mean? It is a bit of a vicious cycle. You've said it multiple times, Corby, and I think it speaks to your leadership at the ticket, at I assume at home, being willing to listen.
Yeah.
It takes a humility, though. It takes, because if I think I know everything, I don't really need to listen.
Right.
You know what I mean?
A lot of it probably has to do with the fact that, because I do know there's a lot of people that made the jump, let's say that they, in our business at least, that they didn't start out as an overnight board op, or they didn't start out as an intern. A lot of them do, but a lot of them don't. And to kind of see step by step what you have to go through to get to a certain point, you remember those things.
Yeah.
You know, you do. And it's not lost on me that I was 1 trillion% broke for my 20s.
Yep.
But I still thought that I had ideas that would work, and it was just taking an audience to listen to get there.
Stay here for a second. I actually listened to the show a little bit yesterday afternoon. And this is the great thing about not being live. We can decide whether we're going to edit this or not, or you can decide. But I recall 2 or 3 months ago, you and I was with you, like Jason Kidd's doing nothing to benefit the Mavericks.
Right.
He signs an extension yesterday, and the conversation is, our presumption is he's a hell of a leader behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I guess where I'm kind of trying to poke around here, Corby, is there's different types of leaders. There may be an outspoken Doc Rivers, you go my way or the highway. Maybe Jason's behind the scenes saying, how can we do this together?
A couple of months ago, it is weird to look back and think how close it seemed like that his job was in jeopardy.
Yes.
You know, I mean, they were playing really bad and nothing was making sense, and it seemed like a repeat of last year. And then everything clicked, and he did make a couple of moves and tweak the starting lineup a little bit, and then they just cooked. They went 16-2, and now here they are. But yeah, I think that there is a lot to that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. I've always said, like from a Pat Riley standpoint with that Laker team, or a Phil Jackson standpoint with the Bulls or the Lakers or whoever, for guys like that, sure, you got to come up with plays out of timeouts and things like that, blah, blah, blah.
Or you don't. You have an assistant who is better at that than you.
Yeah, but the number one thing for those guys is you're managing egos, because you're dealing with guys that are, you know, making $50 million a year or whatever they were making in the 90s with Jordan. They're all superstars. They're gods in their profession. And you have to
They make more money and probably have more power publicly than you do.
Absolutely. And you have to figure out a way as a leader of that group. Steve Kerr's this way too. Manage the egos.
Yes.
That is first and foremost. Manage the egos. And with Kidd, you know, I don't think Luka's quite there yet, like egomaniacal, you know, and I think that he was lucky enough to learn to see Dirk.
Yeah.
And Dirk is, you know, I could go on for 10 hours about how great of a human being Dirk is.
Sounds like you know him. I don't know him at all. You know him personally to some degree, or maybe really a lot. Sounds like he modeled what you're talking about. He was humbly confident in who he was.
For Kidd to deal with Luka right now and to deal with Kyrie, which everybody thought would fail, me included. I didn't think there was a chance in hell that would work out. But for the organization too as a whole, and that's Cuban, that's Nico Harrison, their GM, it's all these guys figuring out, okay, what were the missteps with Kyrie before? How do we make that right? And we had Cuban on not too long ago, and I asked him that specific question. What did you do? And he said, we listened. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying. You know, we listened. Kyrie was never a bad guy. It's just Kyrie was a different guy. And you see that a lot. Now, you don't see it where guys are making $50 million or whatever that often, but you do see it as long as you're open to what they're selling. And I with Kyrie, there was a couple of things that were, as we all know, that were weird. You know, it was hard to look past, but it seems like he has gotten past that. But if you're willing to listen in a leadership role and you can manage whatever egos there are, then you're ahead of the game. And that's where Jason is, I think, right now.
Corby, I think you nailed it. I think it's absolutely critical success to every leader in any industry. The people, yourself included, plus the people around you, are going to have some degree of an ego. Everyone does. But if I've been more successful and I've made it to a C-suite or I've made it to a starting position, that means I've had reason for my ego to be more increased. That ability to listen and manage those egos is probably as critical to most leader success as anything. You're in the entertainment business. You're love music, maybe more than sports.
Yeah.
As the guys gave you a hard time about this past weekend. You might have been 0 for 3 for the sports events, but you were 3 for 3 for concerts. So all you music lovers, Corby's actually, he's a radio DJ in an undercover job at the sports station.
Right.
Where is your head? What are your conversations with people about AI and media and artists and creation and content? This has been your life.
Yeah, it's so weird right now. Like, it is so weird. There's our producer, DJ, he had, for $1, it was like $1 a month, he had access to this AI generator, voice generator, where you just type in my name, basically, and then you write a script. And then boom, my voice was perfect.
So it pulled your voice from public domain.
Pulled my voice
Didn't
from
even have
public
to put
domain.
in a clip. It pulled one.
Yeah. And they wrote this whole funny thing of stuff that I didn't say, but it was me. And we did it for Bob too here recently. It's bizarre and it's frightening as hell. And I totally understand from like a music standpoint why those guys are freaking out. From an actor standpoint, it's not going to be too long before, James Dean and Marlon Brando are in another movie together. For real.
No, for real.
Like, I mean, it's right in front of us. And I don't know how to react to it quite yet. Like, we go back to the beginning of when we were talking about, and I think I've got 5 years left, and I don't even, in 5 years, I can't imagine where this thing's going to be in 5 years. So it kind of scares me to death. But I know it's kind of, there's no avoiding it. So I don't know how to embrace it. I really don't. I don't know what it can be used for good, because I sound like a Jedi right now. But
but you're in these, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously,
dude, you
work for the company whose entire business is rights and licenses and fees. Are there pragmatic things we're hearing? Is it somehow we have to harness and tame the beast? Just like,
you have to, and that's the thing. I mean, there's, you see, there's a new lawsuit every day concerning it, and that's why the writer strike and the actor strike was going on in the first place, because AI, they were trying to get ahead of the AI thing, and I don't know where, I didn't read the finality of the resolution that they came to, but that was it mainly. Like, look, Bryan Cranston can't have his voice just leaked out there for a Lipton iced tea ad when he's like, wait, what? What do you know? I imagine it's going to be like, we're still dealing, here we are 25 years post internet world, and we're still dealing with internet laws and restrictions that are kind of nebulous, right? And so this is going to be something that will be addressed and attacked and battled and argued over and with for years.
In our final few minutes, I want to go a couple of different directions. I want to go back to 5 years from now. One of the phenomena that we see in our business, Corby, is someone has built a manufacturing or a real estate company or whatever it is, and they've been grinding 20, 22, 25 years, and they think, man, when I exit and they wire me that money, it is awesome. And they check off their checklist, right? Lower their handicap, buy a second home, whatever has been important they've talked about. And then they kind of wake up and they go, oh my gosh, I'm 52, I'm 61, I'm 39, whatever the case may be, 12, 14 hours a day. What am I going to do every day? There's a real sense of loss of identity, loss of control. If you have a good day or a bad day, the kind of the levers to pull right now in your business, and how you all of a sudden now you don't have a microphone, you don't have the tools you're used to. How do you and Julie think about what do you want to be doing? How are you going to fill your time? Have you even gotten to that? I know 5 years feels like a long way away,
but it's not.
And
that I know.
But the fact that you've said it is 5 years and not indefinite.
Yeah.
How have you been talking about what you think you might do to give purpose to you and Julie's life?
Yeah. So my whole thing concerning like my current job is that as I kind of got more and more successful at it, I never wanted it to define me, even though I know it does publicly. I get that, like.
Correct. But that doesn't have to be how you define yourself.
Exactly. And that's the important thing. Don't let that get to you. So don't let that, I don't want to walk away and say that, man, I really miss being Corby on the air guy. You don't want to get too big for your britches if you want to just put it simply. And so I don't think that side of it's going to bother me as much. There'll be a ton of things that I miss about doing it on a day-to-day basis. There's a lot of things that I want to do. There's a lot of things that I don't want to have the daily routine of, and I don't want to say pressure because it's not like real pressure, but of just getting up and having the show consume you.
Yeah. It's every day.
Yeah, it is. It's every
5
day.
days a week.
My sister's in Colorado. There's a pretty good chance I'm going to end up back up there, and I'm going to do a lot of things outdoorsy that I've not been able to do.
What are some of those things?
Whether it's camping or hiking or fishing, or I love it all.
You do?
All of it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I want to be able to do that when I want to do it.
Yep.
My wife's a big beach hound, and we got a little place in Florida. So there'll probably be a lot of time spent down there too. And we're big dog people, like big dog rescue people. And I definitely, whether I'm here, wherever I am, I want to be very involved in that side of things. I say I don't want to have a career. There's a good chance that that if you need a dog sitter, I'll come over to your house and dog sit for you. Yeah.
Can I take you up to that currently, or are you
right?
full?
Yeah,
you full
I'm maybe a little full right now on my own, but I think that I'll always be doing something, and there may be something work related that I do. I just don't want to have a career.
Yep. You made it sound really simple. And I think you addressed one side of the coin, ego. How do you think business owners, leaders, personalities, whoever, how do they not allow career define themselves?
I mean, that's obviously something that's within each and every person. And it's probably pretty difficult. If you're out there just killing it in your industry and you're well known in the industry and, it gets to your head and all that, it's tough to shake off, I would imagine, but there's things that are so much bigger than that, at the end of the day. I heard Scotty Scheffler say this, and it really resonated with me. And they were just going, how's this going to change your life? And la, 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 la. And he's like, look, the bottom line is, in 100 years, this isn't going to mean a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, and it's a really good perspective. And that guy's faith is so strong, and he sees things. That's why he's so scary on the golf course.
100%.
It's because his perspective is so, he's so grounded.
His worldview is, in fact, there's a guy across the street probably doesn't even know the Masters is going on.
Right.
And he doesn't care at all.
Right. Yeah. Scotty's.
His mindset is spectacular.
Yeah, and that's why on the golf course, if your mind is that settled, then and you're that good.
Correct.
Yeah, there's a lot of Jack Nicklaus in that too, and Jack was that way. But yeah, you just gotta be grounded. Again, if you've lived in whatever industry long enough, you've seen people fail, you've seen people succeed, you've seen why people fail, why relationships fail, all of it. And so one of the cool parts about getting older, you've got a little more perspective.
Yep.
And if you can harness it, then yeah, more power to you.
Yep. Maybe my last question, and I'll release you from the blue chair. I think, I've talked to lots of leaders and CEOs over the years, and it's interesting. Some of them have a real passion for the arts. And then they've struggled to figure out, but I make money over here. You seem to have found a way to allow your passion and your love for entertainment be profitable, be a career for you. Maybe this could be to the 50-year-old listener, it could be to the 25-year-old listener who's wrestling with which career. How would you kind of speak to somebody about, and we've been here a little bit, but I want to balance my passions and my interests. I don't want to go work in a cube. I don't want to go being a CEO. How do they wrestle that with making a living? And
yeah, I think it's
love versus commerce, so to speak.
Right. I think it just goes back to doing what you like. And if you are doing something that you're into, that you wake up every day and you don't look at it necessarily as a job, even though that might grow over time, I think that you generally will be happy regardless of and I mean, again, if you're below the poverty line, and that's tough.
Yep.
That's really, really tough. But if you could somehow, I think just even if you're able to scrap by and you're doing something you really, really like, then you're probably happier than 90% of the people out there that are making 10 times the money that you are. Again, it's easier said than done.
It's easier. Yep.
And it's tough to sit there and take my parents were always all over me. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Because my parents were very by the book. You go to college, you get a job, you do that job, and you don't really explore. You don't really, I shouldn't say they were that way, but it was kind of inferred that. But they would have preferred me to go to law school and things like that.
It's a proven track to them.
Sure.
And you went the
It's
unproven
safe.
track. It's a safe track.
Right. And sometimes safe is a hell of a lot more dangerous, but it can be a hell of a lot more fun.
Safe, conservative, sometimes it's like inaction. It seems like it's the safest. It actually might be the most dangerous.
Yeah.
Because inaction or passivity is not a great way to pursue life.
Yeah, I would think it would suck to wake up at whatever age there is and like, what have I been doing for all this time?
Correct. And what might suck more is you go back to work the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Because to your point, you have to be willing to fail really till the end of your life.
Right.
We got to keep trying new things. That's how you talked about it. Change is hard.
Yeah.
So,
well, and like, a lot of kids that I talk to that are, 20, senior in college, let's say, and they want to get into the business or whatever. And that's fine. I'm like, maybe take a year to go, I don't know, go work in Europe or something like that. Go do something. And, maybe you'll have some sort of epiphany over there on what you want to do. But to all the people that want to get into the workforce at 22 and start grinding right away that's tough.
It is. I had in fact, I think he was a guest on this podcast, talked about those 20s. You should almost have as many jobs as possible. How try to learn as much as you can.
Yeah.
The money's not going to be there. So your money, it may be flat, but if your learning curve is super steep, you're probably on the path to a great future.
Yeah.
Because you're learning stuff that you like, you dislike. I mean, you were learning every part of the business at age 23. Corby, this is awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you. Thank you for the investment of time.
Absolutely.
Congratulations to you and Julie and the success of the ticket, of your family.
Thank you.
Your two boys. So
Appreciate it.
thanks for spending time with Decision Points.
Absolutely.